everyone. So this is going to be a review of Ed Sheeran's latest album, Subtract. I have listened to the album about 3 or 4 times over the past couple of days, and I now formed a pretty solid opinion around the album. I've never talked about Ed Sheeran and his music before on this channel, and I kind of thought that maybe this would be a good place to kind of share my opinion of the man and his music. So I think right off the bat, I was never really the biggest fan of Ed Sheeran to start with. I never was really a big fan of his music ever since he came on the scene in 2011 when I was turning 13, 14 years old. There are a few songs here and there that I do find to be pretty good, but overall, I think the main reason why Ed Sheeran's music hasn't really clicked with me is that, to me, he just seems just like another guy that plays a guitar. And most of his music, to me, kind of sounds a bit bland, like it's missing something, missing some sort of element that I crave in music. But I'm not saying that his music is bad. It's not awful music. I mean, there's definitely worse stuff out there than Ed Sheeran, but like, usually his lyrics are pretty good, but I just find that his melodies and his style of music just isn't really for me. And that is a bit of a shame because I know how popular he is. Like, I'm wearing Gorillaz, a Gorillaz shirt, and this is a British band that I definitely prefer over Ed Sheeran. I find their music to be much more interesting, much more layered. There's a lot more stuff to it. There's a lot more flavour to the music. Has its own unique identity, yet they do so much of what Damon Albarn has and his virtual band, and I think that also kind of ties into all the crossovers, all the collaborations that they do, which they've been doing since Demon Days in 2005, and it's definitely it's been going on for longer than Ed Sheeran, 10 years longer in fact. But back to Ed Sheeran, I think Plus is probably the album that I like the most from him. I like his early stuff. I thought the 18 was a good debut song. I also like Small Bump. It's a nice sounding song and it has a pretty powerful message. Though, funnily enough, I don't really remember much else from that album. I know Thinking Out Loud and Photograph and Sing from his second album, Multiplied, which is actually the album that I like the least. Divide was a little bit better. There are a couple of songs on that I like. I was never a fan of Shape of You. I really didn't like that song. It's overplayed. I just didn't like the way it sounded. I know it's a sex song, but it kind of sounded a bit icky, a bit yucky. I know a lot of people like it, but I wasn't really one of those people. I did prefer Castle on the Hill. I thought that was an uplifting song. I like Eraser too. I kind of do like his more aggressive, rough style of strumming of the guitar in that song, and that is kind of his style. He's very, his fingers can be very diligent and like aggressive and scratchy with the guitar, which is kind of part of his style. For some reason, his visual style has like a lot of like scratch elements on it, like the back of the Divide album was like really grainy and really distorted, and I saw that in his concert. I did see him in concert a few months ago. I didn't review it though because it was at a stadium in my city that is very, very, heavy on like copyright, so I didn't want like a copyright striking against my channel for filming that concert. But it was decent, I enjoyed it, but still there's something about his music that still comes off as a bit lacking to me. For quite some time now, more often like a few years back, I used to watch this other YouTuber called toddintheshadows, who is an American music reviewer, and he has this this saying called the white guy with the guitar, which is supposed to be like this copy-paste figure of just a man who plays a guitar and has a few ballads, and he says there's so many of them. I can list many. You have Jason Mraz, you have Newton Faulkner, you have Wes Carr, who is an Australian guitar man, though I haven't heard much of him. And there are some that I do really like. I do like Jack Johnson, and I do like Jason Mraz as well, though I haven't heard much from both of them in a while. But it feels like Ed Sheeran is one of the more recent iterations of this trope in music. And to me, he's kind of like become the ultimate white man with a guitar. He is definitely the most popular. And his rise since 2011 has been very, very swift and very fast. And now, as of this recording, he is now the best-selling live performer of all time. His latest tour called the Mathematics Tour, preceded by his Divide Tour, were two of the most sold out million seller ticketed live shows in history. And I said he is decent at performing, and I did have a good time watching him perform, but like, I just feel like he pales in comparisons to other live musicians like Queen and the Beatles. And it's funny because I watched a movie called Yesterday a few years back, which was about the Beatles, and he was in the movie, and it was the point of him being in the movie was that even though he is as famous and popular as he is, he pales in comparison to that band and their cultural impact. And I've always kind of found it funny of like where to place this man in the current scape of music. But anyway, that's enough history about what I think of Ed Sheeran then. This is what I think of him now, and his latest album, among other things. So funnily enough, I was sort of mildly anticipating this album. I did see the trailer for the album on YouTube a few months ago, which is a video of him showing the track list of his new album on some cold-looking beach in Britain. And from just from the get-go, just from the names of these songs, you could tell that this is going to be a bit of a more darker, more personal album compared to his previous few albums. Possibly almost sort of a bit of a homage to his first album, which did have some darker songs like The A-Team and Small Bump. And I was mildly excited about what he would bring with this new album, which is also supposed to be his final album based on a mathematical symbol, this being subtract. Now, first off, the cover design did kind of come to me as pretty unique and pretty interesting. So it's basically like this this picture of Ed Sheeran's face, but it's like extremely like grazed. It's very ruined. It's very scratched and like dried up and parched up, and just overall just this really, it's almost like this really washed out, ruined, broken picture of Ed Sheeran's face. And it kind of looked pretty unique to me, and I was interested, so I gave it a listen. I listened to it on Spotify, and I think what I can say about this album is that it's good. It is good. The lyrics are definitely very thoughtful and pretty more complicated than most stuff that you hear on music nowadays. There is thought put into it, but it still comes off as a bit lackluster and a bit dull when it comes to the actual design of the music and the way it feels and the way it's produced and the way it sounds. It does feel like another Ed Sheeran album with the same style that feels lacking to me and feels a bit blunt and sort of dull and a bit diluted. I don't know how he can fix that, because I actually still don't completely understand why I feel this way towards music itself. But when I listen to it, it's obvious to me that it feels like there's something that could be better about the way he makes his music. Also, just back to the concept design of this album too. One more thing I will point out is that I've also seen the design for the CD of this album, and the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that, it looked like Ed Sheeran like vomited his breakfast on a white CD, wiped it across the CD, and took a picture of it, because that's what it looks like. I'm sorry if I ruined the CD look for you, but that's what it looked like to me, and it looked very very odd and very strange. But as I said, I guess that's his style, and I guess he's trying to sort of go with some sort of like Vincent van Gogh type painting, or maybe Pro Hart. If you're Australian like me, you probably understand who that guy is. But it's definitely strange. But overall, I think I'm rallying on too much about the visual design and not talking that much about the music itself. So here's what I think of the tracks. So it starts out with the first song, Boat. Now, when I first heard the song, I actually thought that this was one of the better songs on the album. I do like the like where this song goes, and even though the lyrics are sort of more simple compared to some of his later songs on this album, I do find that the topic to be pretty bold and pretty brave. I think the meaning of this song is kind of like moving on with your life and the determination to keep on going despite any scars that you might have suffered. He says in the chorus, maybe these scars will heal, but maybe I won't. But then he finishes with another rhyme, but the waves won't break my boat. And I thought that was pretty powerful. That was a pretty good chorus, and it was relatable to me, and kind of like the stuff that I've experienced in my life. And I thought it was a unique sort of song that came out in like today's musical scape. I felt it did have a bit more thought into the lyrics of trying to make something sound a bit more unique and something sound a bit more memorable, and maybe something that people can relate to in a song that they haven't heard before. So I like that. And then we get into Saltwater, which is another song about the sea, ironically. I'm kind of at loss of what this one's supposed to be about. I think this is one that's supposed to be like just like a racer taking the comfort in his pain, whatever that means. He says he's comfortable in salt water, so maybe it's about him comfortable being uncomfortable in his life or something. Maybe he just likes the cold, maybe he just likes to go swimming. Who knows? But it's another okay song. It's one that I also think falls into like the lackluster category of this album. And okay, and yeah, and that's really about it. So Eyes Closed, the third one, seems to be shaping up to be the first real hit of his album. It's definitely one of the more catchier songs of the album. It's kind of like what Bad Habits was for, and Two Step was for Equals, though I never was also really a big fan of Bad Habits. I know it's kind of hypocritical of me to say that because it's one of Ed Sheeran's less acoustic songs. It kind of goes more into the realm of electronic. But I just never really was a fan of it. I found it was really overplayed, and to be fair, I kind of found that song in particular to be quite rubbishy. It just wasn't really, to me, that great of a song, and I got tired of it very quickly when they started playing it so much on the radio. Two Step is a song that I'm actually more of a fan of. I like its faster pace and its fast lyric delivery, and is also is very like fast paced like guitar strumming. But anyway, I might talk about that album for another day. Maybe I won't. But anyway, going on, I'm trying to think of a few other ones. The next one that comes to mind that really stuck out to me was End of Youth. So End of Youth is kind of a song that kind of also that I could relate to because I guess it's Ed Sheeran kind of feeling disillusioned with the experience he had during his teenhood into his adulthood, how things didn't turn out the way he expected to, how youth ended too quickly and he was kind of like thrown into the adult world too fast. And as I said, I think it landed for me because I do relate in that aspect. I kind of felt that with my youth in a lot of ways. I'm not saying there was anything that bad about my youth, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And there was some darkness in it that I didn't realise I was going to have. And as I said, I think the only reason that this one stuck out to me because I found it a bit more relatable than the other ones. But overall, it is a pretty down and depressing song. It's probably the most depressing song on the album because it deals with like struggles of teenhood, you know, just the hardships of the world that you got to deal with and things like that. But as I said, it was pretty powerful. It was one of his more powerful songs on the album. But overall, I probably wouldn't be listening to this one that much also. I guess I'll also gloss off another song called Dusty. I kind of also was a bit confused of what this song was supposed to mean too. I kind of took it as he is dropping a needle on a dusty old record that he hasn't played in a while. I guess that's what it was about. Maybe it's a song about nostalgia, about the better days where you thought your life was better. Maybe that's what it was about. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can correct me. But another song that I thought was more positive and I thought kind of stuck out to me as one of the better tracks on this album was Colorblind. It's a very more like upbeat, very kind of happy, peppy, lovey-dovey song. I think it's about two lovers that aren't exactly compatible for another, but they are in love anyway. So I think that's what the song means. As I said, I haven't listened to this album that many times, but I've listened to it enough that I feel like I can at least talk a little bit about some of these songs. But it was a nice song. I saw the music video of Ed Sheeran being like lambasted by like water balloons full of paint. So that was kind of funny to watch. I have nothing against Ed Sheeran, but like it's just funny seeing him in these weird situations in the in the music videos for this album. So Curtains, Spark and Skaymore were alright, I guess. I don't really remember much of Spark or Vega either. They were kind of, I'm pretty sure they were decent enough, but they kind of felt like filler songs to me. But Curtains was probably one of those better ones in that section of the album. I guess the final one of the main album that kind of jumped out to me was the final one. It was called like the cliffs or the hills of Oda Ferran or whatever it was, and kind of had a bit of like an Irish tone to it. It had the Irish violin in it, which kind of felt a bit like a callback to Galway Girl, which actually was one of the better albums for me on Divide. There are 4 extra bonus tracks which are pretty good as well. Let's see if I can remember them off the top of my head. The final one was called Moving, and I can't remember the other 3. They kind of just flew by. So I guess what I just said right now is basically what I currently think of the album. Most of the stuff isn't really that memorable to me. There are a few songs in here that I think are pretty good, and I'm not saying that the album is trash. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just don't think whether it lived up to Ed Sheeran's ambition for being like his boldest album yet. But there are some good ones on here for sure, but the fact of that, I've listened to this 4 or 5 times now and I still can't seem to remember everything about a lot of the songs, kind of says that maybe this album is kind of forgettable and maybe it is a little bit lackluster in some aspects. As I said, the sound production is very clear, but I just feel like his flavour of music is just lacking something that could give him a bit of a more of an edge, but I don't know what that is. Maybe Ed Sheeran will figure that out if he does continue to make music, because one thing I will add, I am aware of the lawsuit that he has been put in recently, and after watching a few videos, a couple of Adam Neely videos, I have learnt that it's actually been going on for about 3 or 4 years. This isn't actually a recent thing. It kind of started, I think, maybe a year or 2 after Divide came out. There was something about how his Thinking Out Loud song was similar to the chord progression of Let's Get It On, which was a song from the 60s, who I forget who did it by, who it was done by, but the artist of that song is like fining him like $100 million, and Ed Sheeran's just putting his hand up saying, look, the building blocks for songs is actually pretty limited, so of course when you make your own unique song in like a 12-bar, 12-note format, of course with the thousands of songs that are written, no matter how different you try and make them sound with lyrics, there are going to be coincidences and misnomers and very similar sounding songs along the way. But he says that he's never intentionally tried to copy anyone, and he's just staying true to himself. So I have a bit more respect for that guy, because at least he's not, because there have been times where artists have actually tried to copy other musicians. And I know a lot of albums, like Dark Punk, for example, they do sampling, which is not copying. They're just taking inspiration from music that they like, but yet still trying to put their own spin on it. So they're not copying, they're just like legally using, borrowing certain sounds and melding it with their own sound format. So, but Ed Sheeran's not really doing any of that. I mean, even Gorillaz does that, but Ed Sheeran is completely original. And, but overall, what would I rate this album out of 10? I'll give it a pretty decent, sort of solid-ish 6 out of 10. As I said, if you're going to buy this album, I wouldn't say that you're wasting your money or listening to bad music. It definitely is a very thoughtful album compared to a lot of other stuff that's come out this year, like compared to like songs like I'm Good, or like the Meghan Trainor's Made You Look or I'm Your Mother, which I'm sorry, but I think those songs are really bad. They are quite garbage in my eyes, but at least Ed Sheeran is trying to make original sounding music and trying to make good sounding music. I guess he's trying, but like at least his lyrical his lyrics are good and his song structure is good. I don't think it's great, but it is at least good, so I will say that. But anyway, that's my opinion of Ed Sheeran's latest album, Subtract. I'm interested to hear if you're a fan of Ed Sheeran, maybe you have different opinions on the album that you'd like to share with me. Feel free to comment on my video. But overall, that's what I think. And before I go, you probably noticed that my walls are empty because it's about a week since I'm going to be moving out of this apartment and back in with my parents. As I said in a video about a month earlier, there is a rising housing crisis in Brisbane as well as Australia. My rent is going up, can no longer afford it, so I have to move back in with my parents. So it's kind of up in the air whether I will have to continue making videos. I might have to take a break for a little while and kind of readjust to the new setting, but I'm pretty sure I will be able to find a way to make more videos for you to see. But overall, I might lay low for a little bit. I probably will come back in maybe a few months, time will tell, but I might just have to take a break for a while. But anyway, that is my my opinion of Subtract. Thanks for supporting the channel as always. You guys are awesome, and girls, you both are awesome. Guys and girls, I keep on forgetting girls, but you know. Thanks for supporting the channel, and as always, you are the best. Thank you. See ya.